We met a bunch of people who could care less if their name was Mud. That's this week on Motoring 99.
TSN's Motoring 99 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas Car Care, the way it should be.
Hello everybody and welcome to Motoring 99. You know, they tell us you can count on only two things in life. That's death and taxes. Well, this week we like to add one more thing, and that is you can bet that in just a few years, trucks will outsell cars in North America, led by sport utilities. And we all know there are two kinds of truck buyers. They're the people who just love the image and the style their sport utility gives them. And we'll talk more about that later and how these people spell dollars and cents not only for automakers but for tire makers also. But first, we're going to meet some people who couldn't care less about style and image. When they go trucking to have fun.
Trail number 1 and trail number 2 are for 35-inch tires and under, and that's it. Trail number 3 is for 35 and over. Guys, like I said, four-wheel drive trucks have had a bad name for a long time. We know what ruined it down in St. Williams, so let's show everybody that it wasn't the truckers that ruined it. Let's put on a good show for these spectators today, and let's continue on.
The big event today is our mud bog. It consists of probably 8 pits. 2 up at the front that we use for our mud bog racing, and then we've got several different pits inside the bush today. Basically, we've got the course marked out, and anything in between that course is fair game today. The 4x4 market has changed. As many of the smaller trucks like the Ford Rangers and Chevy S10s and whatnot, they're like cars. Now, what these guys are doing, a lot of these guys are taking vehicles like that and modifying for this kind of condition. Putting in the bigger tires, suspension lift kits, increasing the horsepower of the engine, stabilizing the drive line. So there's a lot of work that goes into these trucks before they can actually compete in something like this.
You're not really going to go through that, are you?
Oh, we are. We are.
Why?
Just get wet and muddy. Have fun.
Can you do it? Like, is there pressure with all these people watching you or what?
Oh, no.
No. We're from the swamp, man.
Well, naturally, when you promote an event, one of your major concerns is always safety. I mean, there's always the chance of something going wrong. We've prepared for it as well as what we can. We've got quite a few marshals out today. Hopefully, between the different pull vehicles that we have, and even some of the competitors themselves, that we can keep this thing totally under control.
We hope.
I hope.
You could have gone to a baseball game or a play. You call this fun, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's once a year.
Yep. Get dirty. Hey. Not as bad as the truck.
Enjoy yourself.
Yeah,
what the problem is and what you're trying to do here.
Changing the starter. Got mud in the old one, got to clean it out, put a new one in.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's about it. Should be ready to roll, hopefully.
I guess if you're gonna take part in one of these things, you gotta know how to fix them, right?
Yeah, pretty much got to know how to tear them down and put them back together.
Some people may say you're abusing these vehicles, but I get the feeling this is what they're made for, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
What would you have to say out to all the people in the city with those sport utilities that never get dirty?
Wimps. That's what they're made for, you might as well use them.
Driving here.
It's a 1978 CJ7, 35-inch Super Swamper is the only way to go, with an 8,000-pound winch on the front. Anywhere we want to go, we go. We're not any of these, what do you want to call them, guys that think they're four-wheel drivers because they drive down the street. We drive everywhere.
Beautiful. And it's made for it.
And it's made for it. It's built tough.
Go for it.
All right. See you later. See you on the other side.
GM now use an LED for the third high-mounted spot lamp rather than the conventional bulb. The reason is that it lights marginally faster. May only be a split second, but that split second equates to about 30 feet of extra warning at 100 kilometers an hour. You know, brand awareness is becoming a very important part of marketing. Say Coca-Cola and everybody instantly knows what you're talking about. When GM said Impala, 96% of the people they surveyed said Chevrolet. Well, it's that brand identity that they're hoping to cash in on with this all-new Impala.
As with most cars in this class, there are two engines offered, a 3.4-litre V6 and an old friend in the form of the General's bulletproof 3800 V6. Now the latter is the route to go for a number of reasons. First, it delivers an even 200 horsepower and 225 pounds-feet of torque. Second, it uses a better 3.05 to 1 final drive ratio. And third, an electronically controlled converter clutch instead of the conventional lock-up torque converter. As a result, the throttle response is fast whilst keeping engine noise at an acceptable level. The bonus is that it does all of this whilst delivering a respectable average of about 30 miles to the gallon.
You know, in the past, GM had a lot of problems with the parking brake because they used the caliper. This caused premature brake pad wear, and in some cases, the calipers had to be overhauled. Well, all of that's a thing of the past because now they have a special brake drum built into the disc brake and its own set of brake shoes. In other words, it's the way it should have been all the time.
The new four-wheel disc brake system and full anti-lock combine to give decent stops measuring 118 feet from 80k and a pedal that's easily modulated. GM also suggests that the new design will deliver 40% better brake life. The base suspension is, pardon the pun, basic by definition, featuring McPherson struts at all four corners and anti-roll bars at both ends. Opt for the LS package and you get stiffer springs, thicker roll bars and much better 225/60R16 Eagle GA touring tyres. These refinements and a stiff chassis combine to give the Impala remarkably good road manners. On the skid pad I was truly impressed. Body roll is control and understeer benign. Indeed, when you push it to the extreme, the back end begins to break away in a predictable manner, allowing you to drift the car with confidence. Suffice it to say, these desirable characteristics are generally not expected or found in a large family sedan.
Room and versatility are very important in a family sedan. Well, this Impala has got them in spades. There's ample knee room, your feet can actually fit underneath the front seats, there's a ton of headroom, 3-point seat belts for all three rear passengers, and of course, 70/30 split folding rear seats.
Elsewhere, the LS comes with air conditioning with dual-zone climate controls and a set of cruise control buttons that reside on the steering wheel.
One of the really neat features with this radio is you can actually customize the car via the radio. Now, I hate auto locks. First thing you do, scan through, find auto lock, turn it off, exit the system, and now it's set the way I like it. You know, there are three parts to the great car equation. The Impala's got two down pat, one that's a little iffy. The two it's got down pat, the dynamics are superb for a larger vehicle, and the family side of the equation, well, it's covered in spades. The problem is, while they gave it a name with heritage, they gave it no style with heritage. The only thing you'll find in common between this car and Impalas of old are these round lights, and that's a shame.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns storing machinery that you only use seasonally. This snowblower is a perfect example, but you may be able to use some of these tips for other types of machinery you own. For example, one key item that you really need to take care of is the fuel system. Now in this case, this machine has a plastic tank, so corrosion isn't a big problem, but a lot of small engines like this have metal tanks, and corrosion's a big problem. If that's the case, you're better to put fuel stabilizer in with the fuel and fill the tank right up so that it won't rust. After you add the fuel stabilizer, run the machine for several minutes so that the stabilizer not only gets in the gas, but gets in the carburetor as well, so that the gas in the carburetor doesn't go bad. This fuel stabilizer, you add 5 milliliters per liter, and it'll keep your fuel from going bad. The other thing you want to do is oil the upper cylinder area of the engine, and that's where a product like this aerosol engine store comes in really handy. You spray it through the air inlet of the engine while it's running and literally drown the engine out with this oil. It kind of foams up like shaving cream. After you've snuffed the engine out, you take the spark plug out and spray a little bit more in the spark plug hole. That keeps the cylinder walls and piston rings wet, keeps the valves lubricated, and stops any corrosion in the top end of the engine. Make sure that your crankcase oil is clean as well. If it isn't, change it. That's your Midas tip of the week.
In the new car retailing business, can the customer always be right, even when he's wrong? It's coming up later on Kenzie's Corner.
We're out in the desert in the state of Nevada, just outside of Reno, where BF Goodrich has invited some journalists from Canada and the United States to try out their all-new all-terrain tire they're dubbing the KO. And while getting a chance to drive on the tire, the journalists have also had the opportunity to meet one of the world's #1 off-road drivers.
Light them up. Stay on it now. Don't let off the gas. Stay right with it. Stay right with it. You'll probably make it. You'll probably make it.
Rod Hall has been called the Jacques Villeneuve of off-road racing.
See, we take them the harder way with some tires to make them work harder.
He has competed in 31 Baja competitions, winning 16. But a big part of his job is demonstrating the latest BF Goodrich tires to dealers as well as the media.
What we do is we don't try to show the dealers this is the best tire. We say we want you to compare the tires so when a customer comes in, they can sell the customer the right tire. So we design these exercises to showcase what each tire does best. It's up to them. If they like this tire the best, if they like the all-terrain the best, then that's what they're going to sell. And so these exercises are all designed to be slow, and they're precise driving exercises to showcase each tire individually. And that has grown into a substantial part of our business today.
An all-terrain tire should look all-terrainish, and what we've done is try to improve the exterior, particularly in the upper sidewall of the tire. We've added traction bars in the upper sidewall, which give it an aggressive look. The basic tread design, although the normal person wouldn't see it, they will feel it in improved traction.
It's cool to own a truck or an SUV now, and that makes having those tires cool as well. And people want to look the part. They want the tires to be able to take them to be able to maximize the performance capability that they paid for when they paid that extra money for the SUV. You got to have the tire to take you there to see what your vehicle will do as well.
For a lot of people, it has to be aggressive, even if it doesn't go off-road, and it's got to satisfy that need, because it's one of those things that with SUVs that we believe there's a lot of, I can do it if I want to, even though I may never not go off-road, I can do it if I want. And that power for them, I think, is important, and that's what they like.
The Hummer behind me is now riding on the new BF Goodrich all-terrain TAKOs, but Hummers come with Goodyears from the factory. But BF Goodrich is so confident about their new tire, they've sent a few tires off to the Hummer factory for a test drive. All fingers are crossed right now at BF Goodrich. You can believe that. All right, let's head to the garage and join Bill Gardner.
Well, Brad, good luck to them if they get that Hummer account, but they're going to be pretty disappointed when they see the numbers. How many of those things do they sell every year? Can you imagine when they get back and tell the boss they got the account, but they only need 50 tires a year? Anyhow, what I want to talk about this week is brake master cylinders. We've got a Buick LeSabre here where the brake master cylinder's gone. It's actually leaking fluid externally. There's a pretty good trickle of fluid coming out of it right now. The car's only got 50,000 kilometers on it, and that certainly isn't the norm. On today's cars, master cylinders are lasting longer and longer. 15 years ago, we were changing these things all the time. Today, it's pretty rare, but every once in a while, we get a car just like this one. So we'll show you what it looks like and talk about some of the components. Here's the brake master cylinder on this Buick LeSabre. This is the reservoir right here. It's opaque, so if you give it a shake, you can actually see the fluid level in the master cylinder. Over here is a port that connects the master cylinder to the ABS unit, which on this car is located up in the left front corner of the car. This is a pretty simple master cylinder, just two basic outlets, one for front and one for rear brakes. And over here it's bolted solidly to our brake booster, this large black canister right here. Now the problem on this particular car is an external fluid leak, and if you look down here in the brake booster just below the master cylinder, you'll see two trickles of brake fluid emanating from the master cylinder, and they just go right down and they're dropping on the ground underneath the car. And this is a pretty substantial leak on this particular car. It's kind of rare, but it's losing a lot of brake fluid to the point where this cylinder's got to be replaced. There's the new master cylinder that's going to be going on this car shortly. Now when it's on the car and you're pumping the brakes, for example, there's the action right there. Every time you pump the brakes, you're pushing this piston forward. Okay, and on this particular car, our leak is emanating from the bore right here. It's actually trickling out here and the fluid's leaking down the booster. Now when this is on the car and the brake fluid's full, there's a direct connection between the reservoir and the bore of the master cylinder and right out this line down to the brakes at the wheels. Same here, right out of this part of the master cylinder into the bore and right down the line to the wheels. But when you press your foot down on the brakes and you apply the brakes, what you're doing is pushing the piston past these ports right here, and then it closes off the reservoir and it starts to build pressure in the bore of the master cylinder right here, and that pressure is applied out through the line and right down to the wheels to apply the brakes hydraulically. Same thing over here, you're building pressure in this area of the master cylinder bore and it's going out that outlet port. You can see that they've sized the two outlet ports differently so that you can't confuse the lines when they're assembling the car or when it's being repaired. And if you look up here in the reservoir, you can actually see through there and see a baffle in this area right here. And this baffle serves to cut off one side of the master cylinder from the other, so that as you fill the fluid, you'll fill up this side right here, and it'll fill up right to here, and then it'll spill over the top of this baffle, and then fill up this area over here. And what that does is, if you have a leak, for example, coming out of this port right here, it would empty this side of the master cylinder right down to nothing from that leak, but it would only empty this side down to the top of the baffle, and then this side here would be cut off from this side because of the baffle, and you'd still be able to maintain hydraulic pressure in the other half of the system. You'd still have some brakes. Over here there's a plug where the low-level sensor goes, and this sensor just tells you that your brake fluid is low. It turns the light on the dash. On this particular car, the symptoms were pretty obvious. We had an external leak. We could actually see fluid trickling down the brake booster, and that's one of the things you might want to check for if you're having any problems with your brakes. First of all, go to the master cylinder, make sure that the fluid level is where it should be. If it isn't, top it up, and check that whole vicinity of the master cylinder for any signs of leakage. But I'll tell you something, the most common cause of a failed master cylinder that we find today is that somebody has, for some reason, obviously by mistake, put the wrong fluid in that brake master cylinder. Only brake fluid from a clean, unopened container should go in there. Make sure that it hasn't been left open to the air because its boiling point gets lowered or contaminated with any other fluid. If you're in any doubt, don't use the fluid. Get some new fluid from a clean container or consult somebody that does, because believe me, the majority of these things that we change today are because somebody contaminated the brake fluid with the wrong thing. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 99.
While you're out cruising cyberspace, why not pull into motoringtv.com? Motoringtv.com is best viewed with autopilot by Romulan and can be downloaded right from our site.
There's no question there's a lot of changes going on in the automobile retailing business. The internet, companies like Auto Bytel and brokers are challenging the traditional franchise dealer's right to dominate this particular market. And one of the things that seems to be bugging the internet guys particularly is that they can't have access to the dealer cost of the cars like they can in the States. You got front page newspaper articles and magazines and TV commentators whining about this fact that the consumers don't have this advantage. Well, I started to think, what other business would you expect to have the dealer cost? I mean, let's say you went in to buy a suit, for example. Like I'd know a lot about that. But I mean, would you expect the tailor to tell you exactly how much it cost him to make that suit? No, you'd try it on. If it looked good and the fabric was nice and the material was good and the price was right, well, you just pay the price and go home. And another thing, would you haggle over that suit? Well, maybe some of you would, but for the most part, we just pay it. I mean, if you go to buy a microwave and it's $249.95, you flash the Visa card, end of story. Now, some people say they don't want to haggle over the price of cars. Well, some dealers tried that, windshield sticker pricing. And then the customers complained, I don't want to pay the same price as everybody else, I want a better deal. Well, who's at fault here? I mean, if the dealers sold more cars that way, trust me, they'd all do it that way. And another thing, you somehow expect a car dealer to sell you a $30,000 product and make a $200 profit. I don't know what kind of business you're in, but if you're working on that kind of margin, you're not going to be in business for very long. Now, the franchise dealer network system, that's been in business for almost 100 years. I'm willing to bet that despite all the challenges, it's going to be here for a lot longer. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Horses grazing the countryside is hardly an unusual sight, but these horses are wild. Hard to believe as we approach the year 2000 there is such a thing, but the state of Nevada has the largest population of wild horses in North America with over 43,000, and they are free to roam wherever their heart desires. That's it for now. We'll see you next week, and I promise you, we'll be talking about cars, not horses, and the people who drive them.
TSN's Motoring 99 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them, and Midas Car Care, the way it should be.